Welcome. My name is Lain Albenna, and today I'll be presenting a PowerPoint presentation that I have created about the coronavirus. My main aim is to provide you with information on this deadly virus and to explain different ways on how to prevent it. Before I get into detail about this pandemic, I'd like to explain what a virus is in general, and in order to make you more familiar with the topic, I'll compare it to a cell. As most of you know, a cell is the basic unit of life, whereas a virus is an infectious particle. In other words, all living things are composed of cells, and viruses have the ability to infect these cells. By that being said, cells are considered live, whereas viruses aren't necessarily living things, but they can replicate themselves within an organism. Now let's look at their basic anatomies or structures. A cell consists of three main parts: the cell membrane, which acts as a boundary that separates the inside of the cell from the outside environment, the cytoplasm, which carries all the cell's organelles, and last but not least, the nucleus, which encloses the cell's genetic material. A virus, on the other hand, consists of two main parts: the nucleic acid, which is either DNA or RNA, covered by the capsid, a protein shell that supports and protects this genetic material. So as you can see, there are overwhelming differences between cells and viruses. However, they both tend to be microscopic in size, and both of them contain genetic material. Moving on to the types of viruses, specifically the coronavirus. You might have heard the term COVID-19 used very often these days. This is what the coronavirus disease is known as. The reason behind this is because the outbreak happened in 2019, and it's caused by a newly discovered virus called the Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2, also abbreviated as SARS-CoV-2. The inner structure of the coronavirus looks like this, consisting of the nucleocapsid or end protein, which is RNA, covered, supported, and protected by the capsid. There are many surfaces projecting off of the virus. These are nothing but the surface proteins, including the spike or S protein, the membrane or M protein, and the envelope or E protein. Moving on to a very interesting part, what do you think happens when this virus enters your body, and what parts of the body does it mainly affect? First of all, it primarily attacks the respiratory system, including the linings of the airways, throat, and lungs. The main function of the respiratory system is to bring oxygen in your body and to expel carbon dioxide. The nose and mouth are the entry points to this system. However, air usually enters the air passages through the nose and into the trachea or windpipe, which divides into two smaller tubes called the bronchi, which divide up into smaller tubes called the bronchioles. At the end of each bronchiole is a very small tube called the alveolar duct, in which bubble-like structures called alveoli open into. And this is where the gaseous exchange takes place. To summarize it all up, you breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide, and these gases are exchanged in the alveoli. So what do you think happens when you inhale this deadly virus? As you can see, this is the cell membrane, and these are cilia, which are hair-like structures that move mucus and pathogens away from different parts of the body. As I said earlier, viruses can replicate themselves within an organism, so right now I'll be demonstrating the steps in which the coronavirus does so. First, it attaches to the angiotensin converting enzyme 2 receptor, which is also abbreviated as ACE2 receptor. It then enters the cell in a process called endocytosis. Endocytosis is the process of taking in large molecules into a cell by engulfing them in a membrane. When the virus finally makes its way inside the cell, it reveals its genetic information and hijacks the cell's machinery to replicate the RNA and N protein. The cell's machinery is basically its nucleus. The RNA and N protein aren't the only things it needs to replicate in order to make more copies of itself. It's also got the M and S proteins and uses the endoplasmic reticulum, or ER, to replicate them. It's finally carried by the Golgi apparatus outside the cell in a process called exocytosis. Exocytosis is basically the opposite of endocytosis. And as you exhale, the virus is released from your body and could infect other people. Moving on to how to prevent this disease. First and foremost, cover your cough. By doing this, you could easily prevent the spread of this disease. Open your house window for fresh air. Rinse all items thoroughly, because for instance, if someone diagnosed with corona touched an item, and you touched it, followed by touching your face, you would very likely be infected. You should also obey the World Health Organization's health rules. Never leave the house unless it was urgent, and allow your body to rest and sleep well. By doing this, you could easily prevent the spread of this disease and save lives day by day. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it and have a great day.